morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I would like to welcome you to the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. This is an organization that was put together by the Dubai Government Excellence Program, the Global Innovation Management Institute, and there's a founding group. And the idea was to bring together the most innovative companies and organizations together to share the best practices and frameworks of innovation. Our partners include the Ayala Group in the Philippines, the GCIO University in Barcelona. We've got the Open Innovation Group in Norway. We have, of course, members of Chambers of Bogota and committee of that inside here also. And we are looking for new partners to continue adding to this organization. Part of our objective is to collect frameworks for innovation on how to innovate. How are you managing this as a system? Our targets are people who are doing this in government, they're doing this in universities, they're doing this in corporations, they're doing this in high school, or they're doing it as economic development. And so as we share and exchange best practices, best ideas, we hope that a couple of things will happen. These ideas will be good for whatever you are doing in your own region, in your own sector, in your own segment. And also you reach out to each other and collaborate and share best practices. We have an annual event, an annual meeting that we are planning to have, which will be in the Philippines in, I believe, November. And this will be our annual GCIO meeting where we will talk about this and share, again, best practices around innovation frameworks worldwide. So with that, I would like to invite our next, our keynote speaker for this event. Laura, if you don't mind sharing a slide and just saying, our speaker is Adi Alon. Adi Alon is a very good friend and colleague of us from past experience from the Monitor Group, where he and I work together and we work with companies transforming their innovation practices and opening up innovation globally for companies like General Motors and other major corporations. And then he went on to lead up Accenture's innovation strategy practice at the beginning, get it started. And he was there for the last many years. And since then, he's been seen around the world as an innovation expert, innovation guru, and a thought leader, having worked in some of the most prestigious clients and also having worked in some of the most prestigious consulting firms. So with that, Adi, I would like to welcome you. We can take the slide out, just say hi to Adi. So Adi, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Hitendra. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be here and talk about my favorite subject, innovation, and exchange some ideas with innovation leaders around the world. So,
Adi, just give us a little bit of background of your education. Where did you study, and why do you have the right to kind of say I like innovation and I understand innovation?
Sure. Yeah, so I did my undergrad in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in economics. I went on to do my MBA at the Sloan School at MIT. There, obviously, at Sloan, you get exposed to a lot of the technology aspect of innovation. And while at Monitor, you already mentioned, that's an area that was an immediate focus. I also ran the Monitor Tel Aviv office for 3 years. At the time, we're just, the startup nation was getting started. So that was a really exciting time. And coming back, where we joined by the IMI team, then really kind of focus my work on innovation, which carried on to Accenture as well.
That's excellent. And just out of this, what the audience is looking for, Adi, is framework, stories, things to do, things not to do. And you are a warrior, you're a gladiator, you've been out there and you got battle scars. And so we're looking forward to a great presentation from you. So with that, I'm going to give you the floor. Great background, great track record. And you have the next 20 to 30 minutes to present some ideas, and we'll do a Q&A.
Absolutely. There'll be plenty of framework and stories. I can promise you that. So let me just make sure I share the proper screen. Oops, okay. Please let me know that you can see my screen.
We can see your screen, and it's full screen now.
Full screen now. Okay, great. So I would like to focus the discussion on, I would say, an interesting methodology and area in the innovation space called fast innovation. from Lean Six Sigma, that's what LSS stands for, and I'll explain that shortly, to AI. And I start off my presentation. You can see the image on the right. It's actually AI generated. My graphic design skills are very limited, so I'm using AI, and I prompt it with, provide me an image that conveys speed, traditional stage gate, and innovation. And that's what it came up with. Really interesting image, but something that certainly for me was much faster than trying to come up with my own concept. So this is a little taste of AI. We'll have much more of it later in the document. Oops. Okay. So what I would like to spend the next 20, 30 minutes on are 4 topics. One is the case for speed. So why we're talking about speed of innovation, why is it important? And then what fast innovation is. So not a lot of theory, but just showing the integration between Lean Six Sigma and innovation that gave rise to fast innovation, and how fast innovation can be amplified with AI, and how do you get started. So the case for speed, I also always like to start with history. I think history is kind of important to look at and draw some lessons. So you can see on the chart on the left, the time it took to reach 100 million users worldwide of various innovations. The first one that we can think as the most, probably the one that broke significant ground is the telephone. It took over 70 years to reach 100 million users. Mobile phone were a little bit faster. Within 15 years or so, you already had 100 million users of mobile phone. And you can see Facebook around 5 years. And then at the bottom, Candy Crush, which is some may think equally important to the invention of the telephone, was about a year or so. But if we just kind of put a little zoom on more recent apps and the timing it took them to reach 100 million users, what we see is that a significant contraction of time. So while Uber took about 70 months, so actually the numbers now shifted from years to months. Spotify, Pinterest, about 3 to 4 years or 40 months or so. ChatGPT, 2 months. That's it. Within 2 months, 100 million users worldwide using ChatGPT. So we moved from the telephone that took, if you kind of do the math, about 800 months to ChatGPT within 2 months, a factor of 400. I haven't done the math, but Moore's law probably applies here and maybe even at an accelerated way. So speed is important. We also, oops, why it's not moving? Just a second. Okay. While at Accenture, I led a study a few years back about innovation practices and innovation performance. This was a worldwide study, over 600 companies. Among the many questions that we asked was, what are some of the barriers or the root causes for innovation failure? And the responses you can see here to that question, we allow respondents to pick multiple answers. And the top 2 were it failed to meet customer needs. And the second was product or service was late to market. So speed is important, and it becomes more and more imperative as time progresses. So what do we do about speed? So that's fast innovation. I had the privilege while at Accenture working with a team that pioneered this area. It was based on a methodology that was presented in the book that was written about 20 years ago by a fellow named Michael George. He formed the George Group, which really pioneered that field of fast innovation. And fast innovation is a really interesting field because it integrates two seemingly very separate, very different methodologies. One was Lean Six Sigma. And Lean Six Sigma, I'm not going to go through a detailed lecture about it, but think of it, this is a methodology that's focused on process improvement, waste elimination, quality, that's kind of the Six Sigma element of it, predictability. At the core of it is the MIC approach, a very linear approach to identify root causes, measuring them, analyze, improving, optimizing, and controlling performance. At the root, it originated from the Toyota production system of 70, 80 years ago. So that's the Lean Six Sigma theory. Innovation, I don't need to introduce that. You're all practitioners, but very different. It's highly iterative, prone to variability, uncertainty, has multiple stages of divergence and convergence. So those two worlds seem, very much apart. However, what the fast innovation team did is really kind of fusing those two methodology, and out of it came fast innovation. So before we dive to fast innovation, I just want to offer a very short tutorial on a couple of kind of key theories or tools that will be helpful later on to understand fast innovation. The first one is actually a very deceptively simple law. It's called Little's Law. And Little's Law is at the core, it's a very straightforward equation that says that a project lead time, so how much time it will take you to take a project from start to finish, is a factor of two variables. One is how much work in progress you have you have at any given point in time, and your exit rate. So if you have 10 projects in your portfolio, it takes on average, your exit rate is 2 projects per month, then the project lead time will be 5 months. If you have 100 projects in your portfolio, same exit rate will take 50 months. Sounds simple, straightforward, but that has a lot of implication when you think about your project lead time around how you construct your portfolio, what affect exit rate, and we'll see all of that a little bit later. So kind of keep in mind the Little's Law. Another law, which is slightly less intuitive, but equally important, is the law of variation. And what you see on this chart is on the vertical axis is again lead time, and here's an example of a project that take 5 days or should take 5 days. And the horizontal axis is percent of utilization, resource utilization. Meaning that, let's say you have a project that has 10 steps, each step take half day, so overall 5 days, you need 10 resources to execute it, and you have 12 resources. In that case, you're using around 80% or so of resources. You have ample of extra capacity. And if that project will not subject to any variation, so your average duration is actually what it will take, then you'll complete it in time, five days. The same if you utilize 90% resources, you still have a little extra capacity left, it's still 5 days. Very straightforward. But things change quite dramatically with the introduction of variation. So if you do have variation, so remember I said 10 steps, each one take half day, but on average, but sometime a step take half day, sometime that step takes 2 days or just 1 hour. Once you introduce variation into that process, you start encountering bottlenecks and kind of unbalance in your flow of work. And that's where you get this exponential delay, even if on paper you have extra capacity. The way to think about it and just kind of visualize how is it in real life, one analogy I like to use is our airline system. Okay, every day in the US, there are 42,000 flights taking off and landing in the US. the airline system or the air transport system is pretty much operating at kind of 95 to 100% capacity, meaning that, yes, there are enough pilots and planes and crews and landing slots in airports to accommodate all that volume. But now when you introduce variation, and variation can be weather, mechanical malfunction, the pilot is sick, the computer system in the Detroit airport goes down, or God knows what happens, suddenly that system experiencing dramatic delays. And that's why some of the meltdowns that we see, because there's really not much extra capacity to accommodate those pockets of delays. So the law of variation is hugely important. It has implication. How do you manage resources? How do you reduce or can control variation? And we'll see that a little bit later. Okay, so that's kind of the hardcore theory. Now, kind of starting a little bit the story. So fast innovation is really targeting identified 5 levers to accelerate time to market, or 5 barriers. And the barriers are around the portfolio. So remember Little's Law, that's where it came from. Unmanaged risk, so that's the variation. Process waste, which is really kind of the core of Lean Six Sigma. And two levers that are associated with your capacity and capabilities. So what are kind of the capabilities that you have, and do you have the adequate capability profile and the capacity? Now, each of those barriers, fast innovation identified kind of course of action or levers that can address them. So you can optimize your portfolio, you can de-risk innovation, you can lean your process, you can reduce relevant capability, manage your capacity in an agile way, and you'll see some a little bit more detail towards the right. So what I'll do, I'll walk through each lever, just kind of show an example of how legacy Lean Six Sigma addressed it, and where AI is already made a very significant impact. So let's start with the first one, which probably is the most intuitive, and that's optimizing your portfolio. This is an example from a project I led in life science. This is with an early stage research group within a large life science company. They had some challenges in executing their innovation agenda. And one of the things we did with them is just kind of map their current portfolio. And what we found with them is there was significant misalignment between their kind of strategic intent. So you can see that in this kind of shaded area, it was more towards kind of the emerging markets and emerging technologies that are new to the company versus what they actually worked on. And there was some good reason why that trend happened over time, but there was complete misalignment of the portfolio. And the portfolio was actually quite loaded with kind of technical support type projects. So that's a very simple fundamental tool to use to start identifying, which has obviously significant impact on speed. So that start identify a set of initiatives to streamline and optimize and simplify that portfolio and really align it better with the strategy. Although it sounds very basic, it's actually quite amazing how many clients you work with, and you kind of do this mapping and immediately identify ways of efficiency and improvement. But comes AI, and AI really amplify or take it to another level. My kind of favorite story there is actually from MIT, from my alma mater. Helicin is an antibiotic that was developed by AI. Now, if you think about drug development and the number of target molecules out there that can be drug candidates, the number is quite astonishing. It's actually 10 to the power of 60. That's the number of potential molecules that can become drugs. Just to give you a sense, 10 to the power of 60, just kind of that magnitude, the number of stars in the Milky Way is 10 to the power of 11. Okay, so this is orders and orders of magnitude more than just stars that exist in the Milky Way. So think about a potentially overloaded portfolio. That's the textbook definition. Now, Elysian was developed by AI. So basically an algorithm that was trained to identify molecules that are promising drug candidates based on a database of thousands and thousands of molecules that actually work and molecules that didn't. And identifying those patterns that will distill this huge universe to a small subset. And it did identify Elysian. Actually, this image shows Elysian at the top. Those Petri dishes are clean versus the control Petri dishes with existing antibiotics that did not work. And you can see there's bacteria there. And that's hugely important because there is an arm race between us and bacteria and drug-resisting bacteria. And what Elysian did is kind of identify a new mechanism of action that haven't thought about, again, because of the unique way that AI works. So this is one way, and obviously a fairly extreme example of how AI can simplify a portfolio, identify a much narrower set of molecules to work on. The second piece is around de-risking innovation. And that's probably the biggest challenge. Innovation is inherently risky. And the last thing we want is to work on things with kind of low risk, but low return. So risk is really part of the DNA of innovation, but how do you manage it? So the example I picked here is for the legacy fast innovations from the toy industry. This is another client I worked with, and the graph here you see is for one of their brands, a very successful brand, by the way, and the revenue of the different SKUs that they have in that brand. Actually, it's not the entire brand. You see the number 63 at the bottom of the chart. So there are other 63 SKUs that are not presented here with even lower sales. And you can see there are maybe between 3 and 5 SKUs that actually have decent sales, and the rest just a very long tail of failed SKUs. The challenge in the toy industry, it's a fashion industry. It's hard to tell which toys will catch on. But think of all the waste of all the engineering work, production, supply chain, transportation of those SKUs that at the end of the day were sitting on a shelf and didn't sell. We did some work with them to help kind of shrink a little bit this giant tail through attribute analysis. So basically looking at the entire portfolio and identifying attributes that can consolidate it. So for example, each toy, you can define attribute along the price, the packaging, the play pattern, and so on and so forth, and identify perhaps SKUs that can be consolidated and therefore they're not cannibalizing each other, but you can, even if you can reduce this tail by 10, 20%, it's significant. So it had success, limited success, but still impactful. But now comes AI, and as in the previous case, really amplified. So the example I picked is also from a creative industry, which is entertainment. Okay, and actually, it's not a new example. This is about 5-10 years old already. But this was the first time that AI was applied to the design of a new programming. In that case, the House of Cards. Here, the label of the chart is House of Data, appropriately, because when Netflix developed the House of Cards, they developed it based on mining of their significant data on users, on kind of the type of segmenting them by the type of actors, screen plots, directors, and identify a very large group of subscribers who will watch House of Cards type show. So the concept of the show was developed based on big data mining and analytics. Today, with ChatGPT, probably ChatGPT can also write the script. But before the launch, they knew that that show will be a success. It was the most successful launch at that time in Netflix history. And again, doing it in an industry that has a lot of risk and uncertainty in terms of customer taste, but being able to leverage AI and big data, they basically launched the most successful show. So, and the same thing if I look at my toy industry client, I believe that applying some of those tools now will even help improve even better the performance of the portfolio. Moving forward, the third lever is the process. And as I mentioned, this is really at the core of Lean Six Sigma, is about process improvement. And the story, the example here is from the golf industry. I had a project with a golf club, golf equipment manufacturer. Those of you who kind of know a little bit about the industry know it's very seasonal. So a product that you develop has to be in the stores, ready for sale around this time of a year, March, April. And we work with this particular company had a significant challenge when it comes to delays, quality issues, cost overruns. And one of their challenges, key challenges, originated from just the way the process was designed. So I did mention that I'm not going to do a lot of theory here, but just one additional piece you can see on the right. This is also from the Fast Innovation book. And that's a research that looks at costs and timing overrun in relation to how much time and cost was spent in the requirement definition of the process. So if you look at the development process, how much time and effort and cost that you spend upfront in the design versus the execution. And what you can see here is inverse correlation. So if you spend very little time on requirement definition and upfront design, you're prone to significant time overrun and cost overrun. And conversely, if you spend more time than you in effort and resources, the likelihood of time and cost overruns is declining. And that was really the story for them. There were a lot of design changes that were made very late in the process, had a huge impact on quality, on cost, on delay in manufacturing, just forced them to basically airlift the golf clubs to the US, which is very expensive, versus sea transport. So there were some fundamental changes to their process that helped kind of remove some of those delays. But then come AI, and AI takes a different approach. You can certainly optimize a process, but you can completely revamp it and change it. And my favorite example here is Eno from Capital One. I don't know how many of you are Capital One customers, but Eno is a highly intelligent chatbot that's actually learning and improving over time, that took the customer service, the typical customer service process, and really transform it completely. So a lot of the classical customer service roles or questions or issues that customer service are being dealt with are now fully automatic, from simple things as checking your balance, which existed for a long time, but also that chatbot alert you for if you were double charged, if there are potential fraudulent activity on your account, anticipate perhaps needs and transition in your life that may require some of the, or can benefit from some of the financial products of Capital One. So when you interact with customer service at Capital One, a lot of the issues, is essentially handling it, but also it's doing more in terms of anticipating potential needs, providing you offers, and then directing you to a live person to kind of take over the more, I'd say, complex set of issues. So complete transformation of the customer service model with the injection of AI and intelligence. So moving now to the capabilities and capacities. So one of the challenges that result in delays and inefficiency is simply the lack of relevant skills. This is another project that I led in the energy sector with a large energy company with their engineering and R&D division. One of their main challenges is most of the project were late, as you can see on the chart. And as we kind of looked at what are the reasons, what are the root causes of it, one of them was indeed the lack of project management capabilities. And you can see there's some kind of comments on the right, in the middle comment, the project plans are not very good and do not leave room for contingency planning and so on and so forth. So some fundamental practices of project management were missing. So again, you can, as you look at that situation, you can start identifying initiative to take. Very simply is injecting project management talent into the organization, injecting practices and tools to enable you to introduce those capabilities in the organization. However, coming AI, again, AI really amplifies the skills injection and upgrading. This is an image from BMW assembly plant here in the US of X3 SUVs. This is the door assembly plant. And what's unique about this image is you see robots working alongside humans. So this is not a situation where it's 100% automated robotic assembly, but really a combination of the two. Door assemblies is actually quite complex. There's a lot of components within the doors, and there are certain tasks that robots are capable of. First of all, just lifting the doors that are damn heavy, installing some of the insulation, which require less precision, but you need the human there as well for some of the more complicated, delicate tasks. So when you think about skills, it's no longer just human skills, but also AI and robotic skills. And the unique thing about those robots is they learn over time. And they need to learn because the models do change. The assemblies become more and more sophisticated. So you have this human plus machine combination that really changes the way you think about skill profile. Last but not least is about capacity. So we talked about the skills, but sometimes the challenge is just sheer capacity. If you recall from the law of variation that we discussed, that I shared a few minutes ago, when you run into basically full capacity, you are prone to delays in process that's subject to variation. This is an example from work we did with a hospitality company with the IT division. And again, their challenge was just lots of projects, a lot of delay, a lot of angst and pressure on that team. So one of the things we did is actually look at capacity utilization. And as you can see, everything that is kind of marked in yellow, orange, or red is basically 100% capacity utilization and even higher. So a project, an initiative or a portfolio that's subject to variation, which a lot of their work did, not surprisingly, you get a lot of delays. So we work with them to identify, first of all, where do you have kind of the most tight capacity and how to augment it with cross-training, with selective reduction of projects that are over-consuming certain type of capacity and skills, obviously kind of bringing in additional capacity as required, surge capacity. So a lot of capacity optimization measures that we worked and identify with them. But again, AI comes and really changes the rule of the game when it comes to capacity management. And here are probably my two most favorite examples. So on the right, this is from Stitch Fix. Those of you who are not familiar with the service, that's a service that sends you on a periodical basis a set of clothes that kind of picks clothes for you and send you a set of clothes for you to wear for different occasions. And you can return if they're not to your liking. So at the core of that service are a set of designers that kind of match the proper attire or the desired attire to the customer based on the customer profile, prior buying history, which clothes they returned, they didn't. But if you think about designers and really good designers, they are not in ample supply. They are actually quite in short supply. And now comes AI. And what AI does is identify a smaller subset of clothes for a particular customer, for the designer to choose from. So there's still a very important role for human intervention, but we optimize the time and the resources that are required from the human side as AI does basically the initial selection. So just think this is a very creative, non-scientific, on the face of it, type industry. This is picking clothes that customers would like or specific customers would like. And AI is really changing the rule of the game and empowering the designers to play a role that's more meaningful. So rather than trying to sort through thousands and thousands of different shirts, for example, AI will identify a subset. On the left, this is a chair. It's called elbow chair that was designed by AI. That's by Autodesk. The team there fed a prompt to the AI engine. They wanted a Danish-style mid-century design that can support 300 pounds of weight. I guess for the US market, we tend to eat a lot in the US, and 18 inches off the ground. And there were several designs that AI came up with. Again, there were human designers that intervene and kind of optimize and shape, but out of it came this really interesting design. I like this example because for me, it reminds me the Sagrada Familia church in Barcelona that was designed by Gaudi. There is a Gaudi element in there as well. Those who've been in that church probably know what I'm talking about. So quite interesting. So when you think about capacity now, and even capacity that's highly skilled in short supply, AI plays an important role. So let me kind of wrap up. How do you get started? I think of it as kind of three phases. First is think about the value of speed in your context, in your company. Just try to quantify and assess the importance and which of the 5 root causes or levers are relevant. They're not all of them going to be relevant to any organization. Some organization, the portfolio will not be an issue, but it will really be an issue around skills and capacity. So identify kind of which one to focus on. And then design based on, there's a legacy fast innovation tools that are still relevant, still impactful, alongside with opportunities for data and analytic. And as I showed in every category, data and AI and analytics can play a role. And the exciting thing about it is even if you're a small organization, you have access to the same computing, networking and storage power of a Fortune 500 company. So you have access to those tools with basically very little upfront investment, and then kind of creating the roadmap in terms of sequencing the initiatives and deploying them. And the important thing about deployment is always deployment at scale. To have an impact, it needs to be at scale, such as the Stitch Fix. This is at the core of the organization. Every designer is working with AI. It's not like a side experiment. With Capital One serves basically the entire universe of Capital One customers. So scaling and ability to scale is important. So let me wrap up here. Before I do, I actually ran kind of an experiment. I said, okay, after I wrote this presentation, what AI will say about this topic and whether it will come up with a better description or better content that I came up with. So I used Bard, which is the Google, I guess it's sort of in a beta phase now. I posed the question, how can Lean Six Sigma combined with AI accelerate and improve innovation? I got a response. It's actually not bad. It did not have all those examples. I think it missed few things, but it certainly had insight. So if I were a beginner in that space, that's not a bad place to start. I really liked, you see, actually it's the fourth bullet point in the condensed text. It says one of the ways increasing the success rate of new product and service introduction. So pretty much talking about one of the levers that I mentioned. So not bad. I gave it a grade. I'm an easy grader. I gave it a grade of B-. It will be interesting to see next year or in a couple of years doing the same prompt, and maybe at that point it will be in the A category. So AI is moving fast and affecting fast innovation as well in its way. So let me wrap up here. Thank you. This is my contact information, and I'll open the floor for any questions.
Adi, thank you very much. Let's maybe just get our talking heads together so we can see each other. Nice. What we're going to do is give people a chance to come up with their questions and think about it. So we're going to take a small commercial break. And this will be a chance for us to actually give a video about GCIO. So small commercial break. All of you guys are viewing. You have to stick around for the commercial break.
Hi, my name is Hitendra Patel. I represent the Global Innovation Management Institute. We are honored to be part of the Global Council for Innovation Organizations because we are very excited about the opportunity of spreading innovation globally through certifications and standards. This council that we have put together will allow us to share best practices, exchange ideas between universities, between governments, between companies, between different geographies. It is the exchange of these ideas and this ecosystem that we are building that will help us close the gap and democratize innovation everywhere, and improve the quality of life of every human on this planet.
Thank you. Let's get back to the regular programming as we normally would do. But our partner, the Dubai Government Excellence Program, is a partner of the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. And our mission is to share best practices. And this is what we're doing with Adi today. Adi has got experience from one of the world's foremost consulting firms, the Monitor Group. Michael Porter was talking about strategy. And at Monitor, his team was part of the team that was talking about innovation, strategy and innovation together. And at Accenture, they were all about implementing innovation and making it real. And that's what they were focusing on. And we've got a lot of great insights on what he talked about. So a couple of things that I'm going to summarize what I heard. And then it was about fast innovation, starting with Six Sigma. Six Sigma starts a long time ago saying process improvement. Make sure you remove variability, you remove everything in there. If you remove variability, you can get Six Sigma quality of output, consistent output as a basis for that. And that was within existing processes, within existing companies of what they were already doing. And then they asked, how do you apply that to innovation itself, where we are talking about doing things that we've never done before, lots of ambiguity and uncertainty. And how do you apply the same thinking across that? And that's the That's the innovation in the thinking here, right? That's the brilliance in this stuff. So in here, what I heard was a couple of things, Adi. One was we need to go faster than ever before. And the second one here was there's a whole bunch of things that we used to think was ambiguous and uncertain, and we thought it was unmanageable risk, is now become manageable through AI and manageable through data management. So I would like to maybe break down the innovation process a little bit for us to think about. There was a front end for how to observe and get ideas for problems, identifying problems, and identifying opportunities. How does AI work in that? How do we go faster in that? And similarly, we apply that to actually the product development of the idea itself. How do we go faster? And how do we remove the ambiguity? What's the ambiguity that was considered ambiguous before, but not ambiguous anymore? And the same thing on the other side. So those are the three questions I have is, how are we going to see progression of the innovation process? And specifically in what we used to think was ambiguous and uncertain, and now we can manage it. So let me throw that as a very high level question. What are those places that were unmanageable before are now manageable through AI so we can go fast?
So shall we let other folks to chime in on that? I'll wait.
We'll get the questions going as the questions come on the chat. Are you there, Adi?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me maybe kind of just a quick reaction to what you said. I think that's really the key. You hit kind of the nail on its head on the key to AI and the game changer now is, and especially, and that's the reason I gave example for some creative industries, whether it's fashion, whether it's the toy industry, whether it's the entertainment industry, subject to huge variability and uncertainty. It's about customer tastes that keep changing. And now you have a set of tools that enable you to anticipate and in some degree even measure to a high degree of precision, like Netflix did, customer taste, trends, and providing you confidence in those creative fashion-prone industries to launch new products, new services, new offerings with degree of confidence that you haven't done before. I will take it even a step further, which is with data mining, you can identify trends that will give rise to new ideas. So for example, another fun example from the Accenture world, we worked with a grocery store chain in Europe, and they applied big data to basically kind of sense trends among the consumers to come up with new idea for the food court. And they identified trends around avocado, okay? That suddenly there were in kind of different signals indicating that there is increased interest in the health properties of avocado. And they launched an avocado sandwich that for them was really weird. That's not something that they anticipated. And that was a huge success. Now, you may say, okay, that's a little silly example, but it kind of shows you how you can extract ideas and insights in a way that very quickly translates to new product, new services based on AI and big data. And we see it all over the place.
Adi, we ran a similar experiment to the one that you just shared about applying it to a real project. We have this program called the Innovation Olympics, where we get 5 teams who try and identify problems and solutions for a CEO about what they should do next. The program normally takes 8 weeks. And these teams work through a methodology, 5 teams in parallel to compete with each other. And this year we said, let's create Team AI. And Team AI was a bunch of young people who were fresh out of college. They had no idea anything about the industry. They knew nothing about the company. All they knew were what were the prompts that you're supposed to ask. And as a result, they prompted Bard and ChatGPT and other stuff. And they were able to run the whole sprint of 8 weeks in 2 days. In 2 days. And we got the same sort of output that you just mentioned on your presentation, that to a large extent, what came out was good enough.
Good enough.
Good enough. It wasn't brilliant. It wasn't outstanding. It wasn't insightful, But if you read it for the first time, you say, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
And it raised the IQ of the average people very quickly in those 2 days. And then maybe you do another sprint.
Yeah.
It might be a regular.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, in that case, you can think, okay, how can I reconfigure the process? And maybe the innovation process start with the exercise you just mentioned, a 2-day chat GPT, and that's actually your starting point. So again, think about the designer in Stitch Fix. Their starting point is a subset of a dozen or so close design for which to pick from. Much better starting point. They
But
can
Adi,
only enhance and build on that.
Adi, let's talk about the fact that there's something Accenture does and Monitor does, that's consulting firms, which says that there's a human speed for understanding what we got as data. We have to sit around a table and discuss and eventually absorb and make a decision.
Yeah.
The computers are going to be able to make faster prioritization choices and show data, but we still take time to process and absorb. And we had a rule, if you remember a long time ago, all decisions take 6 months.
Yeah.
It takes time. Human beings to meet and talk to each other. So how are we going to intersect bionics now? AI, the speed of machines, with the slow speed, but at the end, the decision making and the budget and the check writing of the people who make decisions move forward.
And I think that ties to one of the questions in the chat. There was a question about potential conflict with kind of speed and quality, being faster and being better. I like to think about speed as enabling quality, because speed allows you also to experiment quickly, to ask the right questions, and to make decision based on a much high level of being informed in data than before. So speed for speed's sake, I completely agree. That can be a real challenge when it comes to quality. But thinking about how do I get to insight quicker, and now I have those tools that allow me to experiment, and that requires a totally separate discussion, how you set your organization for learning, experimentation, rapid prototyping, and how you kind of run that machine. But I think a very valid question that certainly I think many organizations struggle with.
We have a question from Gemma. Gemma, please turn your microphone on.
Hello, thank you. That was a great presentation. So I'm from Perth in Australia, and I do a lot of work with startups and scale-up companies, especially in the technology space. And I always find that there's a little tipping point within organizations around having an overloaded portfolio where they think they need to get whatever revenue they can and not realizing they need to simplify that portfolio so that they can really start to push their business into growth. So I'd love to know from your experience and research around, how do you help founders recognize when to do that? And also, how can AI play a part in that kind of process?
Yeah, no, that's a real challenge, because obviously you're working in an environment that is very dynamic, to say the least, but also under pressure in terms of demonstrating traction in the market and revenue generation. So I think in that case, I would kind of not take a step back, but actually think about fundamental strategy. In working with that team on some fundamental questions. So what is the problem we're trying to solve, or the opportunity we go after? What is it? So think about this, the first example I shared with the research division in the life science company. So one of the first issues work with them is, what is your strategy? What's the reason for your existence? Okay. And then very quickly, they were able to provide definition. Now let's apply that as a lens on your portfolio. And very quickly you saw which projects have absolutely no role to be there and which are. So I think I'm kind of maybe going a little bit to my roots on in strategy, but I think kind of the strategy discussion, and maybe there's misalignment, which is important to address as well, but I would kind of start that first, then use that as a filter, and then match it against capacity and capabilities. And that's where I can be helpful to say, okay, we have ideas for 5 services we can offer. can 3 of them be completely digitally enabled that, we don't need an army of 500 people to serve? If the answer is yes, maybe 1 or 2 of them can be thrown into the mix. So that's where kind of the AI digital discussion is particularly relevant. Hope that that's helpful.
Yeah, that's great. You also just validated some of the stuff I've been talking about. So thank you.
That's good.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Gemma. We've got a question of Bethel.
Yeah, so my question for you, Adi, great presentation, by the way, was how can companies and institutions at large sort of leverage AI to streamline and automate their innovation processes while still maintaining a human-centered approach? So still having humans be a part of that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that I try to weave in the presentation, this is not about machine replacing human, it's human plus machines. And I actually would recommend a book, I believe it's pretty much that name, Human Plus Machine, written by Paul Doherty, is from Accenture. So I'm a little bit biased, but I think highly informative, that shows how AI and analytics and big data amplify what humans are doing. And again, I'll actually use Hitendra's example of the Innovation Olympics. Maybe the Innovation Olympics, one of the things you introduce is kind of ChatGPT as stage 0, using that as a starting point for the humans. We still need creativity. We still need kind of pattern recognition. We still need judgment. So if you think about AI is excellent in certain things that our brain is particularly poor at, but not particularly good in some of those soft skills that I mentioned. It does call for a complete revamp on how we think of product development and innovation. And again, the Olympics is just one example of that. Okay, so absolutely, I would recommend the Human Plus Machine. It's a great reading. And one that provides a lot of food for thought on how you can put kind of those two together. And what role machine play, and machine increasingly play roles that traditionally humans did, okay, like the call center, the call center in Capital One, okay. There are certain things that machine will do, but then human can build on that and apply the skills and talents that AI cannot bring to the table.
Just on that point,
Yeah.
do you think AI will ever sort of be able to replace soft skill sets? Will there be?
That's where the research is heading. I think this is the $60,000 question. This is based on like a very old TV show in the US. So I show my age a little bit, but that's kind of the vision, and we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, we have the edge, and I think the imperative for us is to maintain that edge and leverage AI for our needs.
Thank you, Bethel. Adi, we're coming to the end of this, and so a couple of thoughts for everybody from DGP, and Jimmy and our frameworks. One of the frameworks that we have is you need more dots and better dots, and hopefully different dots that you can connect together to create new stuff. If you're going to the internet to grab the dots, all the engines are grabbing the same dots because that's all accessible and available. So what you do need to get is additional dots and different dots. And this might be in the R&D labs. They might be with people in the market, which they've not documented or put in structured data yet. So those extra dots are the ones which are going to be different. Think of a chef, 3 chefs given 3 ingredients only, and they're supposed to make something. They'll connect them together to make something that'll be very similar. But if one of them has a 4th ingredient, it's going to be very different. So it's getting that 4th ingredient, more dots and different dots, is the main part of the idea now with AI in place. The AI doesn't replace, but it would need additional dots, and your job is to get more dots. The second part is when you connect those dots together, you need to make sure that the algorithms they're using are understood, and somehow the human brain can still connect in a new and different way that nobody else ever imagined because of your life experiences, because of what you've seen somewhere out there. So it's not the end of humans to a large extent, but there is no doubt the trajectory of AI is going to increasingly learn how we do all of those things. But at this moment, there's a great opportunity to use AI to go faster than we've ever imagined before and empower more individuals to innovate and create some basic ideas as starting points to move us forward again. And so we can increase and democratize innovation ever faster than we ever imagined, back to our mission of the GCIO and that of Jimmy and of DGP. Adi, we're going to give you the last word. You got 1 minute, words of wisdom that's going to blow everybody away and transform their lives as a result of what you have learned over the many, many years of innovation.
Okay, well, you just set the standard pretty high. So first of all, thanks for the invite. I hope, again, the objective of this talk is to kind of plant thoughts in your daily work on where you can, with leveraging AI and analytics and data, and say it's all available. You don't have to be a Fortune 500 company, okay? A small organization with access to the cloud, which pretty much everyone has access to those tools, where it can have an impact, and it can have a dramatic impact on your innovation process and activities. So I think we are just at the beginning of the journey. We are experimenting with what is possible, and hopefully what I shared with you inspired that a lot is possible. If you can come up with new antibiotics in a field that is struggling to fight drug-resistant bacteria for a while, so if you can make that breakthrough, there are a lot of much smaller but yet impactful breakthrough to be made. So the journey in the next few years will be exciting. I'm sure if we have this discussion 2 years from now, it will be very different, and there will be more and more insights. But what's exciting about it is not the destination, but the journey itself. So hope we'll have the opportunity to continue collaborate on that important journey. Thanks.
Adi, thank you very much for this fantastic presentation. It provokes all of us to stop. We got to stop being complacent. We got to move faster. We got to move quicker. And new rules are in play now. The game has changed. And in this new game, those who adapt to the new game are going to be the ones who are going to win. And that's your guidance for all of us. So thank you very much. And we look forward to you coming back again sometime as a speaker soon.
Yep, thank you.
So for everybody else on this screen, I would like to thank everybody for participating today on the Global Council for Innovative Organizations. We will have another seminar every speaker a month from now, and we'll send invitations to everybody worldwide. We are looking for member organizations who would like to join us. Member organizations from around the world who represent in their country, whether they're leaders in either universities, in government, or in corporations, or even in academia. In economic development as companies to join us in this mission where we exchange frameworks, exchange ideas, and as a result of that, we democratize innovation worldwide, and we can take on any challenges on this planet, period. Thank you very much. Together we can. Bye-bye.